Let me introduce you our esteemed speakers, starting from our beloved president and from the host country, Armenia. His Excellency Dr. Armեն Սարգսյանն, President of Republic of Armenia, is a theoretical physicist and mathematician, complemented with deep practical and theoretical knowledge of transition economies and state-building processes. Prior to the presidency, His Excellency has helped states, the private sector, and international organizations to overcome some of the most difficult internal and external exchanges facing policymakers and corporations in a complex globalized world. We're also honored to have him as an honorary member of our foundation's board of advisors. Mr. President, a huge thank you for hosting this webinar in your backyard. I also want to introduce Ms. Anahit Avanesyan, first Deputy Minister of Health in Armenia. After serving as the Deputy Minister of Health for the past 2 years, recently, congratulations, Ms. Avanesyan was appointed as the first Deputy Minister of Health. Also with us at the presidential backyard is Professor Vartui Petrosyan. Welcome. Dean of Turpangian School of Public Health, American University. Dr. Petrosyan also directs the Avedisian Onanian Center for Health Service Research and Development. She has successfully led health service research projects in Armenia and the region, focusing on public health services, tobacco control, tuberculosis, primary care, diabetics care, environmental health, and other important topics. Now I want to move to Germany. Professor Karl Lauterbach, Professor for Health Economics and Clinical Epidemiology, University of Cologne, and also a member and the health expert of the Social Democratic Party at the German Bundestag. Since 1996, he has been a guest lecturer at the Harvard School of Public Health in Boston. From 1999 to 2005, he was a member of the German Council of Economic Experts and holds his mandate in the German Bundestag since 2005, where he became deputy parliamentary party leader of SPD since 2013. Shifting continents, going to Asia, Japan, Mr. Tomoshika Uyama, Director General Office for Coronavirus Disease Preparedness and Response at the Cabinet Secretariat, the Government of Japan. Mr. Uyama began his career with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan in 1986 and has been involved in diplomatic services for the past 30 years. Also in Japan, we have Professor Hitoshi Oshitani. Welcome. Professor, Department of Virology, Tohoku University, Graduate School of Medicine, and member of Government Advisory Panel of COVID-19. Mr. Oshitani is a member of COVID-19 Advisory Committee on Basic Action Policies and member of the COVID-19 Cluster Response Task Force at the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare in Japan. From 1999 to 2006, he served as an infectious disease control advisor at the World Health Organization Regional Office for Western Pacific in Manila, the Philippines. Coming back to Europe, Lord Darzi, welcome. Director of the Institute of Global Health Innovation at Imperial College in London, also a member of our foundation's board of advisors. Lord Darzi is a very special person. Lord Darzi, great to have you with us. Lord Darzi holds the Paul Hamblin Chair of Surgery at Imperial College London, an Institute of Cancer Research, and is the Executive Chair of the World Innovation Summit for Health in Qatar. Professor Darzi leads a large multidisciplinary team across a diverse portfolio of academic and policy research. He has published over 1,000 peer-reviewed research papers to date, developing his status as a leading voice in the field of global health policy and innovation. In 2002, he was knighted for his services in medicine and surgery. In 2007, he was introduced to the United Kingdom's House of Lords as Professor Lord Darzi of Denham and appointed Parliamentary Undersecretary of State at the Department of Health. Professor Darzi was appointed and remains a member of Her Majesty's Most Honorable Privy Council since 2009. Now moving to East Coast United States, where it's very early in the morning. Dr. Nubar Afeyan, co-founder and chairman of Moderna Therapeutics, as well as the founder and CEO of Flagship Pioneering and FAST co-founder and a member of our board of trustees. Dr. Afeyan is a life science innovator, entrepreneur, and executive with more than 3 decades of experience creating and growing new ventures. In 2000, he founded Flagship Pioneering, a unique institution dedicated to systematically inventing and developing the next generation of life science companies. One of his portfolio companies, most people know in the world now, Moderna, is one of the leading biotechnology companies that is developing experimental vaccines against the coronavirus. The company recently announced a progress on late-stage development of mRNA 1273, the company's mRNA vaccine candidate against COVID-19. But beyond his work in life sciences, Dr. Afeyan is deeply involved in philanthropic efforts, particularly those related to the development of Armenia and the Armenian identity throughout the globe. Welcome everyone from so many different continents coming to homeland Armenia, into the president's backyard. I wanna get right into business, and I wanna invite the president to speak a little bit about the current affairs in Armenia. Mr. President, we have over 9 million people around the world infected with nearly 500,000 diseased. About 9 million around the world infected with nearly 500,000 deceased. In Armenia, we have nearly 20,000 infected with 386 fatalities. The daily case studies trend upward in many countries, making it difficult to predict where the world can take, when the world can take a breather. If you can spend a couple of minutes just describing what the state of affairs is in Armenia and the globe as well.
And the globe as well. Oh, well, thank you very much for introduction. I'm very happy to host all of you, at least virtually, in the backyard of presidential office. What's happening worldwide and in Armenia? Let me start with Armenia. Of course, it's tragic that we have already around 400 dead, if I'm not mistaken. And this is growing every day, not in single numbers, but in 10 or between 10 and 20, which is very tragic. We are testing probably, if I'm not mistaken, up to 2,000 a day, and we're getting something one-third, more or less one-third affected. So if we test more, I don't know, because that statistics is not linear, but in any case, it looks like we're still on the rise, so we're not on this curve. We're not at the top, so this type of a curve, it could be Gaussian or any type, we have not reached that. Somehow we are late. Usually we are a nation that does everything earlier than others, like becoming the first Christian state in the world. But in the coronavirus, we are a bit late, and we are still growing, and that makes the whole situation quite dramatic. And we had recently much more energy put into the process fighting coronavirus, starting from this office where we had meetings with the minister here and former ministers and colleagues, and boosting the whole idea that we have to get also international support. Very important, both in kind and getting from different countries, which our colleagues and my colleagues have responded very swiftly, but also in a form of visits of doctors. But more important, if exchange in this world, you don't need to have an expert like Lord Darcy or each of you being present here, but we can have your advice virtually, and that's very, very important. In the case of the world, the one thing that I see is that we are going through very dramatic and tragic times worldwide as well. But I have said this several times on different video conferences recently, because somehow this has opened doors for video conferencing worldwide. The last one, my last one was with India, organized by Horasis, and hundreds of thousands of people watching from India. But the whole idea is that I think this is not because of the coronavirus. The world has changed, and the behavior of viruses, pandemics have changed dramatically, and we have to look forward to the future, realizing that this probably is not the last coronavirus, or not the last pandemic. We have to be ready, and definitely worldwide we have to invest more money into healthcare, more money into biology, and those who are doing bio research like Mr. Afeyan and others. So somehow it's good news to realize that this world has changed, and our behavior is this new world has to change as well. So we have to redesign every and each sector and every and each step that we are following. Starting from our relations with the nature, we have to redefine, and there are many thoughts that whatever is happening today is also the result of our misbehavior with the nature, or our whatever is the nature all around us. The way we run business tomorrow is going to change because there will be new priorities worldwide. The way we run sectors of business like tourism and research and others will dramatically change. So we have to be ready, and it's a crossroad to start rethinking. Every nation has to rethink what is going to happen after coronavirus. Some, as I said, is a crossroad, and it's a crossroad for Armenia. So we have to redefine what are our priorities. It's obviously, there are some priorities that we need immediately, because if we want to sell goods into the world, we have to rethink of advertising new Armenia again. So we need tools like a trade agency or foreign investment agency that will basically try to explain to any foreign investor that why invest in Armenia in the world, in the new world of after coronavirus, and help our businesses to sell their goods abroad. Secondly, definitely, e-government becomes a necessity everywhere. In this building, which is the presidential palace, it becomes a necessity also in the whole Republic of Armenia. E-education, e-health becomes a necessity, because one of the things that we have learned that we need to be connected to the world, and in many cases, all different departments of our healthcare, they have to have full, and it's a small country that in order to have full data on every and each citizen, health data of 3 million people, it's not a problem. It's a wonderful, medium-sized project that could be achieved the way I see as a specialist of IT in a year's time. And then we have to think about other sectors as well, like food security, because worldwide there'll be further difficulties in economy, but the next also big difficulty is coming to every country, including to those countries that you live, be that the United States, Japan, or indeed Britain. Food security. So none of them have the full supply of food for long term internally. They all trade, including Britain. Lord Darcy, I think I looked at the scale of food supplies to UK, except 2-3 items, or majority of the food comes from outside. So every country will face food security when the logistics is very sensitive, when the usual contacts and relations or job distribution is damaged. So Armenia specifically has to face that, because we're a landlocked country with 4 neighbors out of 2 we don't have any relations. So food security for Armenia is a very sensitive issue. So we have to think about fighting coronavirus today. We have to think short term about the economic difficulties that we're going to face tomorrow, and we have to think about food security issues that are going to be with us all of these months and maybe another several years. And then plan also long term, restarting several sectors of our economy. So there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to work. It's tragic times, but it's also a time that everybody will have a chance to restart properly. If you are smart, you do your decisions, you have a proper vision and a program, then this is an opportunity to restart, but restart well, to restart doing better than you were doing before, and probably, hopefully, to restart better than some of your competitors or friends are doing. So that's my simple message, to not probably to you, to our audience, that it's a challenging time. We are going to live in a new world. Many things will be revalued, and we have to learn again how to live in this world. And if we are smart, then we'll be successful. If we are not, then God help us, everybody.
We all know the whole system of healthcare and the concept of healthcare and the role of healthcare in the society has been redefined, and people understood that healthcare is one of the
to match some of the successes that happens in the world, but also for Armenia to get ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Orjan. I would like to say a couple of things. When we look at countries and their performance, it's very important to consider that this is a very complex issue. It's very multifactorial, and the performance of health system is also multifactorial. And local context is very important.
I think international collaboration or collaboration of sort is very important. And I wanna come back to you, Mr. President. there's several ways to this. This information exchange is critical, but also support between nations and maybe very close collaboration, be it scientific or otherwise. Mr. President, hearing all of this from our experts from around the world, what would you add about collaboration between nations and on the side of Armenia in particular?
Well, thank you very much. I think it was quite fascinating to hear what our colleagues were saying. If I try to summarize what I heard, which was basically neither new nor sort of or something that I have not heard before, but it proves that what I really believed or heard from other colleagues worldwide as well is more or less the same. And if I may summarize what I've learned, and if the colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong, I'll be very, very happy. What I've learned, if I take as an example our German colleague's presentation when he says the 3 pillars, the one was luck. Well, I'm sorry, I don't take that as luck, because everybody is equal under the God. It's about when there are many people that see the same thing but they view the same thing but they don't see. So luck in this case is about how sharp and how focused is the government, the institutions or others in order to see the danger coming earlier than others. So maybe you are lucky in a sense that there were cases before you, but you are not the only one there. So there were many others seeing that viewing danger was coming from China, but it's up to the successful ones were the ones who were not lucky, but were smart enough or sharp enough to recognize that you have to act now. You don't wait until it comes and starts hurting. So this is not about luck, it's about to be vigilant and to be ready for the challenges of this world. So it's always the case. In individual life, some people say, he was lucky because he was lucky businessman. Yeah, that lucky businessman was most probably the sharpest, smartest, and the quickest. And that was the case. And I take this as also a case for behavior of governments as well. The second issue was that about quick response, and Lord Darza added here as well. If I try to summarize the key words that we heard here, the one thing is scientific approach. The moment it comes up, you have to leave all of the political approaches, economic approaches, and you have to go basically on scientific approach. So every prime minister or president who is executive, everybody, whoever is running it, has to have scientists, specialists near him, and to have the scientific approach to the project or the problem. Then the second thing, I think, inside each government or inside each country, people have to agree, specifically politicians have to agree, that this is a national disaster, and you have to put aside all of your discussions about and valuation of others' behavior to the future, and you have to have a national unity in order to fight the disease. So basically, and everybody has to agree that there is only one truth, and that truth is the scientific one. Then it comes another word which is important, which is discipline. I mean, discipline here matters, and maybe one of the successes in Japan or in Germany is that they're a bit more organized or a bit more disciplined than the others. Well, I'm not the judge here, but discipline matters. The fourth word which is important here is program or a strategy or a vision. And I think the way I learned from this coronavirus pandemic is that, like in every aspect of our life, vision is important, strategy is important. It's better to have a strategy that you will adjust, or it was initially wrong, but you have the clear strategy rather than don't have a strategy. So the importance of strategy becomes an important issue. And I can continue here, but these are the basic important words: that being scientific, being sharp and vigilant, being disciplined, very well organized, having a clear strategy what doing. And the last thing that one cannot ignore is the communication with the public. You can have the best strategy, you can have the best success, but in this new world that everything, every truth can be manipulated, could be faked or presented in a different form, it's very important you have, because who you are. Because if you are the executive power, you have to have executive power of communication to say the truth and to open the truth to the public. Because you cannot kid the public here. I think it's very important that you say the truth, you base that truth on scientific evidence and share it with the public. That will give confidence, because there's one important word that works here is trust. It's important in every aspect of our life, but it's important when you have a pandemic and you have a relation between the power and the people. People have to trust you. People have to trust their government, their minister, and everybody. If they don't trust, then you will have a problem. And then our colleague from Germany also announced about your economic responsibilities and the difficulties that everybody is facing. Absolutely true. And my take from all of these discussions and the discussions from you is yes, definitely. And this is the case when you have to act early and very sharply. Like the example with Germany was brought here, when every sector of life or every popular sector of life was thought of being supported, starting from those who don't have jobs or those that have daily jobs up to the big corporations. Because I think you cannot say, okay, big corporations, they are rich, they can manage it. They cannot. They are rich, they are big. And they have 10,000 workers, and that means they have a lot of money, but they have a lot of debt, and they have a lot of 10,000 people to feed. So everybody from one individual to up to the 10,000 or 50,000 employee companies should be basically supported by the father of the nation, which is the government or the state. Equally, proportionally, so everybody will feel during the pandemic they are supported so they can survive and their jobs can survive. And the earlier you start, the better. Because every and each day, as in usual business, when you are in difficulty, every and each day basically delayed, the same issue becomes twice as expensive or 3 times more expensive than if you could handle that before. So that's another lesson that I've learned. And of course from Dr. Afeyan, what he mentioned here, it's important that there is an uncertainty, and I agree with Mr. Afeyan that we're living in a time that being an expert yesterday, you could have taken that as usual style, but today there are so many uncertainties. And I would like to add, Nubar, that it's not only in the medical or the healthcare sector, it's worldwide in all sectors, because the world has changed. I think if there's an expert that could have told you how the stock market was behaving before classically, today is different. And generally all other, not only pandemic, all other global risks are behaving. They are behaving non-classically. I call them quantum. Well, people are already heard a lot about this. But the reality is that we have to realize that we really know a lot, but we really don't know enough. We have also discovered that we are not the only inhabitants of this planet, and we have aliens, or maybe we are aliens to viruses, so we have to learn how to live with other species and basically control them. And what I learned as well, this wonderful words from Sir Isaac Newton, who said once to myself, I am only a child playing on the beach, whilst vast oceans of truth lie undiscovered before me. So he said around 400 years ago, and basically it's true up to today, there are oceans of undiscovered truth, and the behavior of pandemics or viruses is one of these undiscovered truths. So I think there's a lot ahead to discover, I agree. But if I may just ask a question from our colleagues. So knowing more or less, or learning more or less what's happening in Armenia, what will be your advice to me as the President of the Republic, or the Prime Minister or the government, or indeed to the Minister and First Minister, Deputy Minister sitting here, or the colleagues, analysts representing academia, what will be your short advice in a couple of words to Armenia and Armenians? Thank you.
This is in the last part of our webinar. 30 seconds as closing remarks, key takeaways, and we'll start with you, Professor Lauterbach. and then we'll go down. So in 30 seconds, key takeaways from the pandemic and from this conversation.
Well, whatever you do, do it evidence-based, science-based, and communicate it in easy, transparent, and honest language. Then the population will follow along and you will manage the pandemic.
Well, I agree with that, and try to avoid the clusters, try to avoid 3 C's, and have a good trust and communication so that people can act their own and industry can act their own to try to do their business, but try to avoid clusters. I think that's a very essential, should be our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's good.
Dr. Afeyan.
Let me comment about the little bit that the president spoke about the future. I think despite all the darkness, there are opportunities that will be created through this massive disruption and discontinuity that will favor the prepared minds, and I believe we will enter a zone of a new abnormal, not a new normal, and there will be people who are going to be seeking to renormalize, and there will be seeking people who will be trying to anticipate the new abnormal and be able to enable it, and so the new ways to do healthcare in the future and the new ways to do education. For a small country like Armenia, the opportunity would be great to leap into being able to be a first mover in a new way of doing things, as opposed to suffering from the lack of critical mass in the old way of doing things. So insurgents and incumbents will be waging a different battle in the future. And I think this disruption could be an opportunity for a country like Armenia to embrace that risk and try to get ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Petrosian, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Since we have to live with this virus for a while, I would like to ask the health sector and also our citizens to take some efforts not to disrupt regular care. Otherwise, we will have to be dealing with vaccine-preventable diseases among children. So let's take efforts to go for regular checkups, for vaccination program, including upcoming flu vaccination, particularly for vulnerable groups.
Thank you. Ms. Avanesian.
Most important things that I'm taking from this meeting is that communication and cooperation are very, very important elements to have success. To this vaccination in the next year. So these two parts of policy making and everything that we do are going to be very important, communication and cooperation.
Thank you. Mr. President, the floor is yours.
Well, I agree with all colleagues that communications, but also being honest and true in your communications with the public is key here, but not only here, but in our future problems that we're going to face with economic difficulties, with other difficulties. Generally, there should be absolute trust between those who are running the policies and the people. Otherwise, all of the upcoming difficulties will not be manageable. That's one thing. And secondly, I do agree that although Armenia is in the middle of this crisis, but I'm optimistic, and I do believe that I agree with Dr. Afeyan that we as a nation, being small, internationally hugely connected, with a lot of support of scientists that we have and professionals outside, we have a huge opportunity overcoming this problem and upcoming ones and be successful. But we have to start thinking and building the future, the strategy, the vision today.
Mr. President, thank you for hosting this. Thank you for your foresight. It's that type of a leadership that a small country in crisis requires. And I want to say thank you to all of our colleagues from Japan, from Germany, from United States, from UK, Lord Darzi, and our colleagues here from Armenia, and everyone else that has joined us from across the world. Thank you for learning from the world, but also sharing our experience. We end on this. Thank you.